In 1993, the American launched an operation to seize two of Somali enemy lieutenants in the city of Mogadishu, Somalia. The operation turned into one of America's most intense urban combat since Vietnam and suffered more death and wounded in a matter of hours. A rescue mission was quickly organized to rescue the trapped American soldiers. Both the United States, with the assistance of the United Nations, went into the city in a desperate effort to save the wounded soldiers. The event was later dramatized in the 2001 film Black Hawk Down. Unfortunately, the rescue team from the United Nations, especially from Malaysia, was extremely downplayed. Despite their bravery, it would seem their effort was unrecognized and underplayed in the movie, making it seem like the Malaysian army played an insignificant and a non-existent part in the mission. To summarize their appearance, they were only mentioned in this single scene and that's it.
We need the 10th Mountain in there. Everything they got. Pakistanis, Malays, I want their tanks and APCs.
They still don't know what's going on.
Look, we have stirred up the hornet's nest here.
The year is 1991. Somalia is beginning to enter into an intense civil war. The Somali president Muhammad Siad Barre was overthrown by the opposition coalition. The Somali National Army was disbanded and some former soldiers joined into regional forces or clan militias. The main rebel group was led by Muhammad Farah Aidid. Many severe fighting broke up in Mogadishu and other parts of Somalia, resulting over 500,000 people killed and 1.5 million refugees. The war led to mass starvation. International food aid were hijacked and exchanged for weapons. In June 1993, Aidid ordered an attack to the United Nations, killing 24 Pakistani forces. The UN Security Council passed a resolution for the arrest and prosecution of the person responsible for the death and wounding of the peacekeepers. Meanwhile, the United Nations also worked on to capture Aidid. The United States planned to capture Aidid's foreign minister Omar Salah Al-Min and his top political advisors Muhammad Hassan Awali. The plan was that Delta operators would assault the target building using MH-6 Little Bird helicopters and secure the target inside the building. 4 Ranger Charles would fast rope down from the hovering Black Hawks. Ranger would create a 4-corner defensive perimeter around the target buildings to isolate it and ensure that no enemy could get in or out. Then army trucks would arrive at the building to take the entire assault team and their prisoners back to base. The entire operation was estimated to take no longer than 30 minutes. October 3, 1993 at 3:42 PM, the MH-6 assault bird carrying the Delta operator hit the target. Next, the 2 Black Hawks carrying the 2nd Delta assault team came into position and dropped the teams. The ground convoy arrived 10 minutes later near the target building and waited for the Delta and Rangers to complete their mission. At about 4:20 PM, one of the Black Hawk was shot down by an RPG-7. Both pilots were killed in the resulting crash. 2 of the survivors, both Delta snipers, survived the crash and began defending the site. A combat search and rescue team were able to fast rope down to the crash site. The team found both the pilot dead and 2 wounded inside the crash helicopter. Under intense fire, the team moved the wounded men to a nearby collection point where they built a makeshift shelter. During the rescue, a 2nd Black Hawk helicopter was shot down by another RPG-7 at around 4:40 PM. At the crash site, 2 Delta snipers were inserted by a helicopter. They inflicted heavy casualty on the approaching Somali mobs. The Somali then overran the crash site and killed the soldiers and took 1 prisoner. No contingency planning or coordination with United Nations forces had been arranged prior to the operation. The US had requested for immediate assistance on a short notice. The convoy, together with Malaysian and Pakistani UN forces, arrived at the first crash site at around 2 AM in the morning. The convoy consisted of more than 100 UN vehicles, including Malaysian forces, Condor armored personnel carrier, 4 Pakistani tanks, American Humvee, and several army trucks. This convoy was supported by several other US Black Hawk and Cobra assault helicopters.
Yeah, so our plan B after the first failed attempt to go out there and get them was to put together an international task force with Malaysian armored personnel carriers and Pakistani tanks. So we've got at least 3 different languages involved here. Units that have not worked together, they have different SOPs and different ways of doing things, and send that out. And that took a few hours to get that convoy put back together. So now I'm riding the combat in the back of a Soviet-made armored personnel carrier, which whoever thought that would happen. And this time we're able to get out there and get to the 2 different crash sites at this point in time.
I remember my company commander saying, they're on their way, and I'm like, I just said, kind of flippantly, "Yes, sir," I could hear him. Because it was just like a rolling firefight that got louder and louder and louder. You could
And then
hear
it would fade away, and they'd keep in the fight, and they'd get loud. Yeah, it just kept going, and all of a sudden, there comes Matt Ryerson walking in with a quickie saw in one hand and a car 15 in the other, and I was like, this guy's my hero. You know what I mean?
I kept turning around to this little Malaysian driver. I said, "You drive. You just drive this thing and get it the hell out of here." And he kept turning back saying, "No, we stay." And just kept saying, "We have to stay here." I couldn't figure out. I thought everything was, once the vehicles got there, we were going to take off and leave. But I didn't know that, Walcott was still in the aircraft.
When we got in trouble that night, we had to ask the United Nations to come help out, which they did. And again, I can't thank enough the Malaysians for what they did that night. And other forces from the U.S. Army's 10th Mountain Division fighting their way to get to us and fighting by our side that night. So we asked the United Nations if they would help us, and the United Nations, a couple of countries from the United Nations showed up with armor and tanks. The Malaysians came with their armored personnel carriers, and the Pakistanis came with a couple of tanks, and they met us all at our base. And at about 11 o'clock that night, we all drove back out there together. The Malaysian armored personnel carriers, I can't compliment these guys enough for their courage. They basically kept a driver and a gunner in those vehicles and then handed the rest of it over to us and said, we'll go wherever you ask us to go. We'll do whatever you ask us to do tonight. We're here to help out. The Pakistanis in their tanks, not so much. They rolled in there, got shot at a time or two, and rolled right back out of there and left the Humvees and these Malaysian APCs in the city streets.
In the rescue operation, one Malaysian soldier died when an RPG hit his Condor vehicles. 19 American forces and 1 Pakistani army were also killed. Meanwhile, 73 Americans, 7 Malaysian and 2 Pakistani army were wounded. Somali casualties were heavy, some estimate around 2,000 militias and local civilians. The battle was over by the next morning. US forces were finally evacuated to the UN base by the armored convoy. 2 weeks after the battle, US General officially accepted responsibility. In a handwritten letter to President Clinton, the General took full responsibility for the battle's outcome. He wrote that the army had adequate intelligence for the mission and that the objective of capturing the target was met despite sustaining heavy casualties. On the Malaysian side, Lance Corporal Mat Aznan Awang was a 33-year-old soldier from the 19th Battalion, Royal Malay Regiment of the Malaysian Army. He was posthumously promoted to corporal rank. While driving a Malaysian Condor APC, he was killed when his vehicle was hit by an RPG in the early hours of 4th October. Corporal Mat Aznan Awang was awarded the Sri Pahlawan Gagah Perkasa Medal for his service.